Hi, welcome to this video. So this is just 13 hours of me attempting to make more food out of food waste. She's recycling. Actually, no, this is just the way I make my orange peels. I like to put them in salads. I like to just eat them raw. And this is not a recipe video. I don't really have a recipe. I Frankenstein together a bunch, and this is what I do now. So enjoy. Alright, when it comes to ingredients, I do not have a lack of ingredients. I eat way too many oranges. So here's just 1 week's worth of orange peels that I salted, plus some ginger that I'm going to peel to the best of my ability. And peel away I will. I'm gonna just throw this into like hyper speed just so that we don't have to watch me struggle with this. And once all of the ginger is pretty much shaved, I slice them into these little coins of maybe 2 or 3 millimeters thick so that they can squeeze out all their juice. So the first step of candying any kind of peel or ginger is to boil them for an unknown amount of time because I'm not following a recipe. But anyway, I've got this induction cooker, she's ready. I've got this giant caldero from the house I'm renting, she's ready. The ginger coins are in. I'm gonna throw in the orange peels. God, I love oranges. And the reason that I think that we boil them at all is so that the water gets in, replaces whatever juice was inside that thing. So I checked it after 20 minutes. I don't know why. It was too soon. Nothing really happened, but I gave it a stir. And then it's like once the water gets in, it's easier for the sugar to get in so that you can candy it. Ignore me just destroying my camera, but this is a cell phone, it's not a GoPro. I don't know why I put it so close. Another 10 minutes later, I use this pot rest I made, and things are actually boiling now. So the boiling, as I said, it kind of softens. It makes them kind of soggy, and it preps the orange peels and the ginger for absorbing sugar syrup, which is what they're going to do later. And then after another 30 minutes, I saw that they were looking very bloated and very close to falling apart. You don't want them to reach that point where the peels are starting to come apart on their own. And so I stopped there, and then I took them off the heat, and then I saved some of the boiling juice. So I call it juice, but I don't think it's really drinkable. I like to drink it, but it's just mostly a salabat with a little bit of orange flavor, and I use that instead of water for the candying stuff because I just love the extra strong flavor, just super roided up ginger flavor. This is just me trying desperately to pour stuff out of this huge pot. I wouldn't recommend using a pot this big, especially if you're as small as I am. And so look at me just doing my best. The sponge is proud of me. Look at that. And then I got a spatula and I just tried to like flick out all the little bits. I dropped one, and in true caveman behavior, I just picked it up. No one will know. Well, if they watch this video, they'll know, but that's already been eaten. It's too late now. And then the next step that I did is to... First, I had to fish out all of the ginger bits because they weren't going to be chopped anymore. I just realized that I've been switching back and forth between like future tense and present tense and past tense, and may my English teachers forgive me. But anyway, I went through the actually quite simple task of fishing out all of the ginger bits which were not to be chopped. I just did it in this teeny tiny little mug. I don't know why. I put all my architectural skills to work to make this 8th wonder of the world. I should have just gotten a bowl. And once the ginger bits were segregated from the orange bits, I could start de-pithing the orange. So the pith is that whitish part between the pulp and the skin, and most people don't eat it. I usually like to chomp on it a little because I like the texture of it on a fresh orange. I think my orange eating habits are just strange, but then this pith, when it becomes candy, it becomes bitter for some reason, and it doesn't absorb sugar as well. Also, it comes off when you're boiling it in candy, and it just makes the syrup really strange. So you want it to be gone, and I really did want it to be gone. Like, just look how hard I was working. Not sure if there's a better way to do this or a simpler way, but this spoon method has served me pretty well in most cases, except in some peels where the pith is just really, really sticky, and then that's when I have to kind of bring the big guns out and bring in a knife to do the work. So just like anyone out there is good at knife stuff, just ignore this. Look away. So once all of the orange peels were de-pithed, but not a very clean job, just imagine you don't see those little pith bits sticking, I could slice them into little slices. So ideally you'd want these slices to be about as thick as a pencil, or like the width of a pencil, or even thinner than that if you can manage it. But as you can see, I was not doing that. I was just cutting them however so I pleased. And at some point in the very near future in this video, I realized that what I was doing was not gonna work out, because if you have a peel that's too thick, like not in terms of like the thinness of the peel, but like the width of your slice, if it's too wide, it's gonna take a really long time for the sugar, for the candy bits to penetrate into the middle, so you'll have like a very bitter middle and then only the outsides get candied, and also you'd have to boil them for longer. So this is around the point where I realized that what I was doing is wrong, so I went back to the things I already sliced and I sliced them some more to get them really thin, like maybe not pencil thickness, like maybe more of like a yarn thickness. And I really want them to be as skinny as possible because I'm a terribly lazy person and I only do this all in one day. Most people boil them over several days, but the thinner it is, the better surface area to volume ratio it is for being lazy. So the next step is the actual candying bit. So the ginger piece is already at the bottom of this pot, along with around a liter of the boiling juice that I saved from earlier. And then I'm just throwing all of the orange strips in so that I can start adding the other ingredients. Actually, I'm just gonna give it a stir first so that it's not all ginger at the bottom, and then I start adding the other ingredients. So since this is a candy, the other ingredients are mostly just sugar actually. And I know that I wrote here that it's an inordinate amount of brown sugar. First of all, why brown sugar? It's all we have in the house. I think it tastes better than the white sugar, but if your brown sugar's really dark, like Muscovado dark, then it ends up making everything look like beef tapa. As it is, the final product here is looking a little bit meaty because of the brownness of the sugar. And as you can see, I am using a measuring cup, just in the completely wrongest way possible. And I have no idea how much sugar I actually added to this mixture. Ideally, it would be 1:1, so 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, but I'm using ginger juice and just I'm following my gut with the sugar, and I spilled some onto the chopping board, so I'm just gonna like paw it up with my little fingers and shake it in. After mixing in all of the brown sugar, I put in some other stuff, completely unnecessary, but just for fun. So just a lot of cinnamon, vibes-based amount of cinnamon. I really love cinnamon. And then my best friend, soju. I don't know if this adds anything to the flavor. I don't know if the alcohol even completely boils off. It probably does. We'll see. So I give it a mix, and then I set it to boil. So 30 minutes of boiling later, it's starting to look like carrots and potatoes. So the goal here is for things to become, I wouldn't say transparent, I'd say like a little bit of fog glass situation, but closer to transparent, bordering on translucent. So I just leave it to boil while I go and mind my business. I check it after 30 more minutes, so it's like a total of an hour, and it's still in a carroty and potatoey stage, but you can see it's starting to lose its opacity, and we're getting there. Another 30 minutes later, so you'll see that I've put a baking sheet. This is a baking sheet, like a non-stick sheet on top, because the syrup's starting to get thick. So the bubbles, when they popped, they were just flinging sugar everywhere. And so I was just like, oh no, I need to cover it. And I reached for the baking sheet instead of the pot lid that was just over there. I noticed that the syrup was running low at this point. After boiling for so long, it lost enough liquid that the top bits of orange weren't submerged anymore. So I made a little bit more syrup to top it up. So it's again 1:1, vaguely 1:1 of brown sugar to the boiling juice that I saved from earlier. And then I just, instead of like measuring 1 cup and then measuring 1 cup, I just did it all in 1 cup. And then I attempted to mix it in such a way that all of the overspill would fall into the pan. I don't think this is good practice. I think that my lab skills have greatly deteriorated from the time that I was working in a lab. Yeah, I used to do that. You wouldn't know that from what I'm doing here. But anyway, this is what I'm doing now. And again with the parchment paper for no reason. So being an ordinary human being, I had to go and have lunch at some point in this 13-hour workday. And it was boiling away as normal. Like, I was looking every now and then, to check on it. I should probably get a baby monitor for it, but it was boiling. And then suddenly I look back and the induction cooker is off for some reason. This induction cooker, she just gave up. She didn't want to go on, and I can vibe with that. She is forgiven. Eventually I did turn the thing back on again because, we still have to keep boiling. And I just kept all of this footage because it makes me feel kind of like a witch, That's the only reason why I like making syrupy things, because it's bubbling away in the cauldron and I can imagine I'm casting a curse on someone while I top up the sugar syrup sauce. I'm like, my enemies are going down. And it's starting to boil in a really interesting way at this point. I don't know what's up. Like, anyone in the science community tell me why there's this like fine sea foam thing forming. But anyway, I'll just leave you to watch some of this glittering boiling footage. After about an hour of boiling, I decided it was done. Why? Because I was tired, and it looks about right. That looks like candy. It's passable. Passing is perfect for me. So I turned off the stove and then I went on to the next step. So supposedly the next step is to air dry it or dehydrate it for several hours or several days, as I've seen, but I'm not a person with several days. And to leave something out to air dry in this economy is to invite rats into my home, and I'm not about to do that. I'm not hospitable, so I'm just going to fast track it. If we can air dry it at 30 degrees for, a couple days, why not just quick dry it at 300 degrees for 1 minute? No, I'm kidding. I just put the oven at the lowest setting, and before that I have to arrange them on a baking sheet. So this is one of my non-stick baking sheets, or in my world, a pot lid. And I'm segregating the ginger on the left side here that kind of look sluggy from the oranges, which kind of look like worms. I'm really good at marketing these. I promise they taste good. And then with this second sheet, I didn't have a baking tray, it's just on a rack. And then I also didn't have a lot of patience, so I'm not really separating them as well. And I think this came to bite me in the ass later. As you will see, karma worked very fast. So I threw them into the oven, and then I just, lowest setting, which was 50 degrees, room temperature in the Philippines. And then I just left it there for as long as I could stand to wait. Two hours later, it's nighttime already, so the lighting is just gonna get worse from here on out. And I checked them and they're not finished yet. what was I expecting? So I took it out, I thought about it, and I just shoved it right back in this whole tray. And I left it for another amount of time. 2 hours apparently. So I left it for another 2 hours, and this is what it looks like. The bottom rack was looking kind of crusty, a little bit beach sandy, not very good. This is not ideal. So this is what you don't want. Whereas the top rack was looking much better. So I think I pulled it out here, yeah. The top rack was looking much better. The crystals that were forming on top of the candy were a lot finer, and they still kind of glossy, and that will make them stick to the sanding powder later. I'll show you that later, don't worry about it. In typical me fashion, I said it was done when I was done. I was tired, so I pulled them out of the oven. This is just 50 degrees, so it's, you know, perfectly fine to hold. And the two racks were looking very different from each other. So I had switched them midway in an attempt to try to save it. I did not save it. So this is what was originally the bottom rack. So it was getting heated from the bottom and didn't get a lot of heat from the top. And it became all glossy and nice. And this is the ideal candy situation. This is what you want it to look like. And then the other rack, on the other hand, the one that was originally on top, is crusty. This is not ideal. The flavor is not any different, so these are ones I kept for my own eating, and I didn't serve them to other people much because they're ugly, but they taste good. Now for the final step, I need something that I call Dune powder. Thanks, Denny. It's actually just sugar and salt because I don't want my candy to be just sweet. I need a little bit of salt because I like champoy flavor. So I get the Dune powder, I throw some orange peel in, and then I shake it around until it's coated in the Dune powder like Timothy. And then I throw them into the mason jar for saving for later. And that means I had to do a lot of shaking. Enjoy some shaking footage. At this point, I guess the only people left watching this thing are my friends whom I haven't seen in maybe 2 years or more, thanks to the pandemic. But anyway, this is the point in our 13 hours together where I'd be like, oh hey, how are you doing, by the way? What have you been up to? Because I've been shaking orange peels in a container that was not airtight, and I ended up covering the entire counter in a fine, sugary sand mixture that was hell to clean up afterwards because I've got this speckled counter and I can't tell what's sugar from the decoration of the marble top. So for this other set, I'm going to show you another option for covering them in the Dune powder. For extremely lazy 11 p.m. I wanted to go to sleep times. So instead of picking them up just one by one and putting them in the jar and shaking them, I put them all in the jar, the ugly ones. I threw just like a ton of the Dune powder on top and I shook it for all my life's worth. Like, that was my workout for the day. Afterwards, I transferred them to a clean jar in the hopes that it would make them look better, and it did not. So here's the final product. This is the good batch. It's really sparkly, really Christmas appropriate. I made this a couple days before Christmas, probably a week before, I'm exaggerating. But this is very, very good. It should probably be a controlled substance. I've snacked on probably half of it, and a handful of it went into some of my extra Christmas cookies, which you'll see in the next video. Yes, there is a next video. And yet I still have no idea what I'm doing or why I'm doing this. But if you made it this far, I mean, thanks for watching. Bye!